Fred Burton and Samuel Katz. How are you guys?
We're great, Bill. How are you?
We're doing really good here. We're in South Georgia, not too far from Savannah and also Fort Stewart. So there's a lot of heroes out there listening right now about this fantastic book that you have, Under Fire, the untold story of the attack in Benghazi.
Well, thank you for having us on. I'm very familiar with that area, having trained at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center.
Well, in your book, I went through it this weekend over the holidays, and it seems like you guys have kept the politics out of it. But I think when you do read it, sometimes you do get upset, you do get a little bit angry when you read this book. One of the things that really stuck with me is that 5 security agents protecting the compound in a place like Libya and Ambassador Stevens, and it really upsets me because you only have 5 people, and it just kind of blows your mind that only 5 people would be guarding the compound.
Well, welcome to the world of the Diplomatic Security Service, where the men and women who serve the State Department often have to do a lot with very little. The Special Mission Compound in Benghazi was a temporary facility, a facility on waivers that wasn't yet up to the standards that had been prescribed to Congress by Admiral Inman following the Beirut embassy bombing. And in many cases around the world, with their resources stretched very thin, especially during and after Iraq and Afghanistan, the agents are really lone wolves out there. They're isolated and often very far from any backup. It's said in law enforcement that when a police officer is in trouble and needs backup, he can come from a couple blocks away or even a mile away, but backup will come. For these men and women, often when danger strikes, the nearest backup is an aircraft carrier 6,000 miles away, and relief might only come a day or two later.
Are there improvements being made for securing our embassies ever since the Benghazi attacks?
Yes, Bill, that's one of the issues that I think the State Department has done a pretty poor job of messaging to the American public. Specifically inside the Diplomatic Security Service, they elevated an old friend of ours by the name of Bill Miller to a senior position to oversee the high-threat posts around the globe, meaning if you look at the world today, there's probably in excess of 20 diplomatic missions or consulates or expeditionary diplomacy posts like Mogadishu where our agents are out protecting our diplomats. And so there have been some significant upgrades made on that process. One of the biggest things that have surfaced as a result of this bill is how do you combat the threat of fire? There is brilliance and simplicity, which Sam and I talk about in the book, with the use of fire. We've seen fire before in other diplomatic attacks. It doesn't take a lot of time to set something on fire, and you can kill a lot of people, much like what we saw in Benghazi. It's easier than making a bomb. So that's the next big challenge for diplomatic security. How do you protect a facility from that kind of fire risk when agents aren't trained to be firefighters?
In this book, you guys walk us through it pretty much minute by minute, day by day of everything that happened in Benghazi. How organized was this assault on the compound?
The terrorists knew what they were doing. They were able to surveil the location. They knew the ins and outs of the security protocols and infrastructure at the facility, and they didn't have a difficult time getting in and swarming the compound. The local guard force, under a British-controlled company but with local Libyan guards, could do very little to stop them, and they were ill-equipped and ill-trained to prevent them from overtaking the facility. And once the facility was surrounded and completely engulfed with gunmen, the battle was to protect the ambassador and Sean Smith, his information officer, for as long as they could. And one of the agents indeed brought them to the safe haven in the villa, but the terrorists, unable to find the ambassador and unable to breach the tactical operations center where the other agents were, they simply set fire to the location. And as Fred just mentioned, sometimes the most lethal tool you can use is the most simple.
Is there a relationship between Benghazi and Syrian rebels? Is there anything that indicates that in the book at all?
Well, one of the speculations was that Ambassador Stevens was meeting with the Turkish ambassador to discuss the Syrian rebels. There have been other speculations that the CIA station in the city was involved in arms collections for the Syrian rebels. The one thing that is definitely known is that Libyan fighters from eastern Libya, from the area around Benghazi and a town that we discussed called Derna, which is really the epicenter of Islamic fundamentalism in Libya, were very, very active in the global jihad. And global jihad is a traveling show, and they go from hotspot to hotspot, waging jihad wherever there is combat to be fought. It is known that inside Syria today there are Libyans fighting against the Assad regime, but there are also volunteers from France and Britain fighting against the Assad regime.
Who are the heroes of Benghazi? Who stands out in your mind after you have completed this book?
I think the 5 agents that did a remarkable job at great personal peril, went in and out repeatedly with this building on fire without breathing apparatus or a smoke hood or any kind of fire suppression equipment in an effort to rescue Ambassador Stevens and Information Officer Smith are the true heroes. And also Glenn Daugherty and Tyrone Woods, the former Navy SEALs that were working for the CIA GRS group, did a remarkable job as well as the entire CIA response over to the villa from the annex. And they perished on the rooftop there at the CIA villa when it was mortared, and one of our agents with the Diplomatic Security Service was blown off a ladder and severely injured. So that's what this book is about. This book is not the politics of Benghazi. This book is about young men under fire, their courage and heroism, like a lot of our soldiers and military operators are displaying every day around the world.
With the short amount of time we have left here, if you guys can squeeze in this last question here, are we getting closer to holding those responsible for doing this, and could this kind of thing happen again with the anniversary of September 11th coming up very shortly?
Let me answer the second question first. Terrorism isn't going anywhere. In fact, there's a good possibility that the alerts around the world will be ramped up if there's any military action in Syria, because the forces that prop up the regime of Bashar al-Assad are the Iranians and Hezbollah, and they've almost made a career out of taking over embassies and blowing them up. So I think that as much as the world changes, the world remains the same, and the threats that were encountered in Benghazi continue to be encountered throughout the world, and there needs to be vigilance, and the Diplomatic Security Service needs to have the support of Congress and the American people to be able to get the resources and manpower to do their jobs.
Fred Burton and Samuel Katz, Under Fire, the untold story of the attack in Benghazi. We have a book we're going to give away. If someone would like it, give us a call. The first one in gets it at 912-367-0028. Fred and Samuel, thank you guys so much for stopping by, and an amazing book and an amazing read for sure.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.